guys, how's it going? Welcome to Smith's Kitchen, Brian Smith Kitchen, as always. And today I'm getting ready. I'm going to try to bake quite a few things today. But one of them being sugar cookies. Sugar cookies are kind of a staple. They're very diversified. Been around since the beginning of time. But we're going to ice ours today. We're going to ice them with a royal icing, which I think is just awesome. This is basically how we do our cutout cookies for Christmas. Although I'm using a different sugar cookie recipe, but the royal icing is the same. The sugar cookie recipe we use for Christmas is my grandmother's, so it's like a bazillion years old. Well, it's 80 years old, and it takes a lot of patience and practice and patience to make. I like them. They're good. They're a great cookie. They're my favorite Christmas cookie, but they're also a colossal pain in the butt to make. So today I'm just going to do we're gonna do a recipe I found on Preppy Kitchen's website. John Kendall. Yeah, John Kendall. Who, if you caught last week's video, he is one of two people that pretty much taught me to bake. Him and Stephanie Jaworski enjoy baking. I learned following them basically, and not that I didn't have a general idea. I know how to make banana bread, brownies, and things out of boxes. But they taught me how to make things from scratch. And this recipe is kind of cool. I've already made one batch. Just to see how it turned out, because it was something kind of different. It incorporates, cornstarch, instead of baking soda or baking powder, as it's not really a leavener, but it keeps it held, makes it better for icing. It allows you to get a flat surface. I don't know if you've ever made sugar cookies before. If you haven't, they're a fun cookie to make. They're the cutout cookies, right? So, but with even with both the recipes, that we use, my grandmother's recipe, and then we've got another one that's just for straight out sugar cookies with sugar sprinkled on top. They have a tendency to dome. When they rise, they don't rise evenly. These, you don't get a whole lot of rise to, and they stay flat across, which makes it easier to ice them without worrying about the icing just going off the top of it, which is kind of nice. And there's not a whole lot of moving parts to these. They're fairly straightforward. They don't take a lot of time or effort. The recipe is even good enough because of the cornstarch that you don't necessarily have to refrigerate your dough before you cut them out. Now we're going to, and I'll explain why when we get to that point in the video, but they're just a fun cookie to make all the way around. So that being said, all that shenanigans, if you are new to my channel and this is your first video, welcome. I'm glad you stopped by. I hope you get something out of this video. Check out some of my other videos. Hope you even consider subscribing to my channel. If you're returning, thank you. I appreciate it. I think that's awesome that you find me interesting enough to come back for more. And if you're a recent subscriber, which we grow every week now, and I think that's crazy to think at one time I thought 30 people were a lot. Now we're getting near 400, and that's pretty effing cool. I'm not gonna lie. Thank you for subscribing. Welcome back. Glad you're here. I'm incredibly glad you're part of the neighborhood. On that note, don't forget to like, subscribe, share. Notification bells right next to the subscribe box. You can check us out on Facebook at Mr. Smith's Kitchen. We have a group over there where we talk, hang out, chat. I'm on there just about every day, either posting something or just scrolling through. My wife Chris on there almost every day. So I mean, we'll know. We respond. If you find a recipe that you liked and you didn't want to leave a comment here on YouTube, you can always go over on Facebook, or if you have a recipe you want to share with the group, awesome. Throw it on there. We'll all try it and tell you how amazing it is, because that's what we do. I think that's it. So let's get down here to the countertop where I will show you the recipe, and we will give you all the measurements in cups, tables, teaspoons, but we also do grams. That way everybody can play along pretty much no matter where they are, although I'm sure there's probably a third way to measure things that I don't know about, but we'll at least get 2 of the 3 out of the way. So down to the counter we go to make some sugar cookies with a royal icing. Hold on for me just 1 second. Alright, we are down here on the counter and got all our stuff out ready to play. First thing you need, recipe. Got it right here in the handy dandy notebook. As always, if we like it, which I do because I've already made it a batch of them, we'll keep it. If we don't like it, we can tear it out. We can modify it if we think we can, and make it, you know, to our liking, right, or to your liking. Baking is, in a way, even though it's a little more exact than just cooking dinner, you can still play once you understand the rules, right? And I think that's pretty cool, and I'm still learning the rules. There's a lot of rules to baking. But we got our recipe. Things you will need to make this with, at least a bowl, maybe 2, depending on how you're going to mix your wet ingredients. But I'm using a stand mixer for my wet ingredients. You can use a hand mixer. You could even do this, per se, with a wooden spoon or just a whisk. Although you would have to have a straw. You know, you're going to get a workout with your arm. I'm not willing to work that hard to make cookies myself, plus I have a stand mixer, so why not? If you are using a stand mixer, paddle attachment is good for this. But the first thing we'll need in our bowl is 4 cups, 480 grams of just regular old flour, some all-purpose flour, like you'd buy in the grocery store. And to that, we are going to add a half a teaspoon, 2 grams. I've got kosher salt. If you don't have kosher salt, you just got your regular old table salt. That's fine too. Half a teaspoon, 2 grams, and mine's beat up. With the kosher salt, if that's what you're using, usually comes in a coarse grain. Try and grind it up, make it a smaller grain. I have found that almost every time, without hesitation, somebody ends up with a piece of salt that did not mix into or melt into the cookie or the cake or the pie or whatever. And I find it so much easier just to grind up my salt when I get it. And then here's where this recipe varies from most recipes. And I think this makes this recipe awesome. Most recipes call for baking soda or baking powder, right? Like I talked about a minute ago. His recipe, he eliminated the baking soda and he put in cornstarch. 1/3 of a cup of cornstarch. And it's 45 grams. And what that does is it gives you stability in your dough so you don't have to refrigerate it. Let me get a spoon here right quick. Let me get the rest of this cornstarch out of here. Cornstarch is like the most amazing powdery stick to everything thing ever, which is awesome. Get that. All right. So, and that's it for our dry ingredients. I'm telling you, this is like the world's easiest cookie. Although me and a friend of mine at work, one of my young kids, Sierra, were talking the other day, and there was a small thing of crumbled up bacon sitting on the counter, and I thought to myself, you know, that would be really good in a chocolate chip cookie with maple syrup drizzled on it. Would that not be awesome? Or a honey for that matter, drizzled on top of a chocolate chip cookie with bacon. All right, so we're gonna whisk this up real quick, get it good and combined. All right, good and combined. And we'll just set this aside for now. Gonna put our whisk in there. And then we're going to take with our hand mixer or our stand mixer or your hand mixer, either one. And we're going to put in 1 cup, 228 grams of unsalted butter, right? Just throw that on in there. Let me move you in so you can see a little closer and a little better. Hold on for me 1 second. Okay, I think that's a little better. So we've got our 1 cup, 228 grams of butter in there, and to that, we're going to add 1 cup, 200 grams of just some regular old granulated sugar, plain old sugar. And if you can also use the natural sugar that's like the off-white, which is, I dare say, a little better for you. Sugar in and of itself, I just watched the thing on the news this morning about how America's sugar intake is kind of out of control, and by cutting back or eliminating it altogether, could easily help you live to be 100. And not that I'm anti-sugar, obviously, but we even use sugar in moderation in our house, and I bake all the time. It's just watch what you eat, basically. It's the same old additive. All right, so we've got our 1 cup, 228 grams of unsalted butter, and that's at room temperature, right? It's softened. And then we've got 200 grams of sugar in there. So now what we want to do is we want to mix this. We're gonna mix this up until it is. It's not gonna be smooth because the sugar is not gonna melt yet, but we want it to be light and fluffy. And I'll show you what I mean by light and fluffy after I get this mixed up. And it's gonna take about maybe 2-3 minutes. So we got that. Let that mix for a couple minutes. So when it comes to light and fluffy, it took me a second to figure out what everybody was talking about with light and fluffy, and I'll save you the trouble of trying to figure it out on your own. So light is the color that your batter becomes, well, your butter and sugar becomes when you beat it long enough. Your butter will actually turn light in color. You're incorporating air in it, so it won't be so much yellow anymore as almost a off-white. And fluffy is like a mashed potato consistency. It's light and airy for butter and sugar, but it should look something like that. See how that's got a nice mashed potato consistency to it? Sorry. Yeah, still trying to figure out that backwards thing with the camera. All right, but it's like mashed potatoes. It's dense like mashed potatoes. It's thick like mashed potatoes, but it's gotten bigger in size and volume a little bit. Right there, and it's changed color. It's no longer dark. That is what's considered light, or no longer yellow. That's what's considered light and fluffy. So to this, we're going to add 2 large eggs at 50 grams an egg, or 100 grams total. And we're just going to put this on low, stir, and we're going to put them in one at a time. Alright, we got our eggs incorporated. Now when you put them in one at a time, you want to wait until everything's kind of blended. You can't see just straight yellow anymore, or your yolks are incorporated into, well, in this case, your butter and sugar, or whatever you're adding it into. This way you don't over mix it. I know that sounds counterintuitive because your mixer's running longer, but it's true. When you put them in one at a time, there's less mixing to do versus putting both your eggs in at once. You don't want to over mix it and get those glutens too excited. So we're just going to give this a good scraping and stir with our spatula. Just like any other thing you bake and mix, use a mixer for. You want to stop occasionally, give it a good old mix down, scrape, and make sure everything's getting incorporated. You don't have any hidden surprises at the bottom. And once we get that done, now granted, it's okay if there are a little, in reality when it comes to this stage of the game, because we still have a lot of mixing to do. So the next thing we're going to add, and it's the last thing we're going to add, as far as wet ingredients go, and I'm telling you this, it's easy cookies, is we're going to put 2 teaspoons, 8 grams of vanilla in here. Just like that. And then we'll get that nice and incorporated. I got our vanilla incorporated. Now, I don't know how well you can see this because of the light. I get the light blaring in here. All right, let me change that. But it may look a little curdled, and it's okay. All it is that butter, not being smooth yet, mixed in with that sugar. It's smooth, but you know, the sugar and everything else in there, that's natural, that's normal. I have found that to be so with pretty much every sugar cookie recipe I've done, including this one. All right, and it'll change with the next step. So we got one step left to do to get our cookies together with. Let me shut this curtain here real quick. Maybe. Nothing's ever quick. There we are. That might be a little better. So the last thing we're going to do is we're going to take our dry ingredients that we whisked together earlier, and we're just going to pour those in, just like such. Now, we're just going to mix this until it's smooth, but you want to start out on low. If you don't, you will get a face full of flour and cornstarch, and that is never fun. It gets everywhere. All right, we are smooth. And that literally only takes a minute or so. We'll go ahead and get our dough off there. And I want to show you this, because this is where the cornstarch kind of makes a difference in this recipe versus just the butter and the little bit of baking soda that goes in the other recipe. And then, like, my grandmother's recipe doesn't have any butter in it. It uses all shortening, which is what makes it a challenge. At least for me, it does. I mean, it works. We've made them every year. My grandmother made them for a million years. My family's made them for a bazillion years. But the next step you would do, if we would have put the baking soda in here instead of the cornstarch, is we would have to refrigerate it for, you know, about an hour, hour and a half, because we'd want to get our butter cold again. And when you use the shortening, it takes even longer because shortening never really firms up. So what we're going to do is we're going to scrape this down real quick. Alright, got that. Almost be better to use a wooden spoon, but that's alright. Got our spatula. That's all we need. The fewer dishes the better. Alright, now I'm going to get this mixer out of the way, because we're essentially we're done with the dough. I mean, as far as getting it together goes, there is no more to do. So all we have left to do is get some plastic wrap, saran wrap, however you, whatever it is you call it at your house or you use, and we need to put it on this. Now, if we were doing either of the other two recipes that I have, we would have to split this dough, and I still might, just to make it more manageable to work with. Why don't we do that? And it doesn't have to necessarily be like a perfect split. We're not going to use the scale and measure it out and things like that. But we'll get our dough out of there. Give it a good, well, maybe. Do you guys ever find sometimes the struggle is just real? Now you can leave this like this, and there's no foul to that at all. But I'm gonna split it just so that way, you know, we can work with it a little better. Because even though this dough, like right now, we could roll this. We could roll this out, cut out our cookies, and move on with our day. But there's always a but. I'm not going to. I'm going to split this into two and wrap it up, and I am going to put it in my fridge. The beauty of this recipe was, if you don't have time to put it in your fridge, or you don't want to put it in your fridge, or you feel like that's too much work, you can move on to the next step. The reason why this goes in the fridge, and it's only going to go in the fridge for about 20 minutes, is it's going to firm it up enough that when we do cut out the cookies, you don't get the fingerprints. You know, you'll get a nice even top, because we're gonna make rounds and ice the top. We don't want that dome. We don't want the icing to go flying off the edges. Although when we go to ice it, I'll show you how to make it so that doesn't happen. But I'm gonna get this other one wrapped up. We're gonna get it in the fridge. Let it sit in there for about 20 minutes, and when I come back, we'll roll them out and cut out some cookies. All right, I'll be right back. Okay, so we let this sit in the fridge for, well, a lot longer than 20 minutes because I had to go to the grocery store. But all the same, it gave me the ability to be able to talk to you about something. So you can leave this in the fridge all day for that matter. But if you do, when you pull it out, it's going to be fairly stiff. Just let it sit and thaw like you would pie crust, right? When you pull pie crust out of the fridge, you let it sit and sit for about 10 minutes to warm up. So what I did is I got my mat out. If you don't have a mat, you can definitely just use your counter. Threw some flour down, and we're basically going to treat this like a pie crust, and we're going to roll it about a 1/4 inch thick. I got a little flour on top, I got a liberal amount of flour on the bottom there, and the lines are from my fridge, which is okay, they'll come out as we roll. But you're essentially just going to roll this out like pie crust. Not a whole lot of pressure, but you want to be able to turn it to make sure we're getting it even. Alright, so let me go ahead and get this rolled out real quick, and then we'll move on to the fun stuff. So we got it rolled out, and next I'm going to take, I've got a 3-inch circle that used to be a Easter egg that I just repurposed and turned into a circle, and I'm just simply going to cut down on it. This is still chilled, yeah, so, which makes it easier, although like I said, with this particular recipe, and I know this to be true, you don't have to chill this, because I'm just going to re-roll with all the scraps right away, and I put your cutout right there, but you can make these any shape you want. I'm just doing circles because that's what I got available. But a lot of times with a traditional sugar cookie crust, traditional sugar cookies, once you cut out the first round, the dough is really warm and it's hard to work with. And you have to roll it back up, put it back in the fridge for a little while, and then you move on from, and you wash, rinse, repeat, and it can be kind of time consuming. This particular recipe though is quite awesome. I've also found, I don't know if you can really see it or not, but I'm not setting these real far apart. A traditional cookie you would put 2 inches apart from one another. When I made these the last time, they didn't spread out, and I'll explain why in a second. But most of it was because, I'll explain now. Most of it was because as soon as I'm done cutting out my circles, I'm going to put this back in the fridge and let it sit. Because you notice I haven't told you to start the oven yet. We're going to get all our cookies made and onto a pan, and then we'll turn our oven on while these sit in the fridge. Alright, well, let me get all the rest of these cookies made because I got another dough in there. And when I come back, we'll talk about what to turn the oven on to, how long to bake them for. Alright, I'll be right back. Okay, we got all our cookies into rounds, and I ended up getting 28 of them, which is stellar. So I'm going to put these in the fridge, but what I'm going to do in the meantime is move this out of the way and try not to tear up the top of my oven. Wow. So I can see. Okay, so we'll go ahead and we're going to preheat our oven. Now we'll preheat our oven to 375, and once that's preheated, we're going to go ahead and stick the cookies in there, and we're going to bake them for around 12 minutes. So what we're going to be looking for with these cookies is around the edges, alright, they're going to be like a light brown, and the centers will still be kind of pale, but what that does is it gives us a nice crisp cookie on the outside edge, but keeps it soft and tender on the inside, which is pretty much what we want. And that's how the last batch I made turned out. They were superb. I'm here to tell you I still got a handful of them left from when I made them last, and that was a week ago. And they're still just as soft and good as they were when we made them. So, that being said, I know I'm going to put mine in the oven for 12 minutes. That is a variable though, because how thick did you make them? How big are they? You know, all that's going to turn into play. So when you start seeing the edges turn golden brown, it's going to be time to pull them out. All right, that's what we're looking for. So I'll be back here in just 1 second and we'll take a look at the finished product. All right. Okay, so timer just went off. Let's go ahead and get this last batch out of the oven. There we are, right like such. And looking at down here at this video, or the feed on my computer, I can't tell if you guys are going to be able to see how light the brown is on the edges. At least on that, it doesn't. It's not really showing up. But let's bring you in a little so that way we can look and see if you can see it. But it's just it's lightly tinted. You don't want much. I mean, you can leave them in there longer. It just depends on how you like your sugar cookie, really. Yeah, but I mean, that's pretty much what we're going for there is, ooh, as we slide. But it's just lightly golden brown around the edge, but it's still soft in the center. So what are we gonna do next? Well, so the next step in this process is just simply we're going to let those cool. We'll let them cool for, I don't know, 3 or 4 minutes on the old pan there, a couple, 2-3 minutes on the pan, and then we'll take them off the pan, put them on a cooling rack. While they're cooling though, we can go ahead and make our icing up for these. We're gonna do a royal icing. It's really easy. It's only got 3 ingredients, 4 if you put food coloring in it. But you want these to be completely cool. If they're not completely cool, the heat from them will just send your icing everywhere. So the important thing is we get these cooled. But let me get everything off the counter here. We'll get the mixer set back up, and we'll start working on our icing. All right, I'll be right back. All right, so we've got a mixer, our stand mixer here. The oven's still really warm, but that's all right. So the 3 ingredients are as follows: egg whites, powdered sugar, and vanilla. It's really just that easy to make royal icing. So, but there are some steps and it's a little bit of process you gotta follow. I've got egg whites of 3 large eggs, so right around 110-ish grams. And that's really going to vary on your whites. A couple of things to keep in mind. Your bowl, you want to make sure it is good and clean. No oil residue or dust, or your egg whites will struggle to fluff. Make sure your attachment's clean also. You don't want any oil residue on that either. Once again, things won't fluff. Other than that, you're pretty well set. You want your egg whites at room temperature though. If not, they will start to fluff and aerate and become a mix. That's much better, but it will take longer, right? So they will whip, but it'll take longer. The closer they are to room temperature, if not room temperature, the quicker they will mix. So what we're going to do is we're just going to turn this on like a medium-low. So if you're using a stand mixer or a hand mixer, 2-3-ish, and we're going to let this run until it becomes frothy. Okay, as you can see, it's starting to become frothy. We're still on medium-low, and I have got 454 grams of powdered sugar. It's 1 pound, of powdered sugar. So it's about a half a bag if you buy a bag of powdered sugar. And we're just gonna put this in slowly, about a cup at a time. It's not a race. The longer we mix this, with our mixer, the more the proteins will break down in the egg whites, and the fluffier your icing becomes. It becomes richer and fuller. So we're gonna put it in a cup at a time, just ever so slowly. Okay, so we got our we got our sugar in there. So what we're going to do now is we're going to take this up to a medium high. We're going to add 1 teaspoon, 4 grams of vanilla, and we're going to get some air in this and get a nice good icing. All right, we got our good mixed. We are in good shape. Way to be able to tell if this is mixed or not, you want to put your whisk in, or your blades of your hand mixer. You should be able to pull it up and see how it made a dimple, but it didn't go away right away. That means we're thick enough, because we're going to put some of this in a piping bag. All right, let me get this moved real quick, and then we'll get this in a piping bag and ice up some cookies. All right, I'll be right back. All right, got the mixer out of the way, got the icing going. Now, with this icing, you kind of want to, may not move quickly, but if you're not going to move horribly quick, you'll want to put something over the top of it. As if not, you will, it starts to harden. It gets like a shell on it. But we're going to put a little bit of this, not much, into the bowl there. Into the piping bag that I've got in a cup. We don't need a lot for what we're about to do. But what I am going to do real quick is grab my plastic wrap and cover the rest of this up so it does not harden on me, as we don't want that. Yeah, now this will keep in the fridge, so you can make it in advance. Just make sure you put it in like an airtight container, like a Tupperware container, or one of those fancy 1970s Tupperware containers made by anybody that makes a container that you buy from the grocery store with food in it. Cool Whip, whatever. Which I hope is not Cool Whip. I'd like to think everybody's making their whip topping on their own. But we'll get this little bit in here, because what we're going to do is we're going to take this icing here and we're going to put an outer line on all of these, like a little outer line on all of these, so that way it will hold our icing in, because we're going to try a technique called flooding. Now, I've never done this before, but basically after we get our rings on our cookies like this, we will thin out the remainder of the icing a little bit with just a touch of water, a few drops to make it thin, and then we will just kind of spoon it in there. So, but first we got to get all of these with icing around the edges. All right, we got them all ringed, and as you can see, I don't have a very steady hand. That's why Chris is my decorator. So what I did was I took what we had left of the icing and I put some of it in this jar. What I'm going to do with this one in this jar with the airtight seal is I'm going to make that a different color, and then we'll do like some drizzles on it or something. But I wanted to show you what I did was I got the rest of my icing right here, and I'm just going to put a few drops of water in here. Now if your icing starts to thicken up and dry up as you're icing, you can add water to it, just a minute little bit at a time, or you'll make it too runny. So you want to go ahead and stir it in. You want to get it to where it'll drizzle, a little bit. You want it to be loose, and this is what they call flooding. Well, they, we, us, all of us, everybody, them, call flooding. And what it does is it makes the icing runny enough that it will spread over the top of the cookie, and we essentially made a dam by putting that ring on there, is what we did. So we got, I'm gonna say that's a good consistency right there, if you can see it. No, you sure can't. Right there, see how it's just kind of flowing? That's what we're looking for. We'd probably even go a little bit flowier, but we'll try that one out. So, on my channel, I talk about how we do things for the first time together, and I had said earlier in this video that we do cutout cookies for Christmas. Well, the kind of the way things work, at least in our house, is I bake the cookies. I don't do much decorating. Matter of fact, truth be told, this is the first time I've ever played with royal icing. This is usually where Chris takes over, and I get out of the way. But today I'm gonna make the mess. We'll see if that is enough to get it to spread out there. Yes, that's still a little too thick, I think. I could be wrong. But, I mean, this is how we learn, right? This is how you would learn. This is how I learned at any rate. But we want that to spread out. So we'll go ahead and get this to spread out on this cookie, and then we'll add just a hair more water to our icing so we get a good consistency to it. Okay, I think I got it. If we look, see how that's got a nice run to it now? Yet, if you can look in there, I don't know if you can see in there real well or not. See how it makes ribbons and it stays for a second and then it disappears? I remember hearing somewhere, it might have been on a site I was looking at, that said that's kind of what you want. So we will see how it goes. Oh yeah, see how that flows much better on there? It's spreading out a little better. I think that's what we're looking for right there. Oh, the other one's drying nice. So these cookies, we're going to let them sit and dry. We have to let the icing dry before we put them away. But you want to make sure you put them away. A royal icing turns into like a hard candy shell. It is the idea behind it. But we know from experience, when we first started using royal icing, we left them set out accidentally overnight, and we'd fallen asleep before they got put away, and they were hard as rocks. But that is what we're looking for right there, is that perfect consistency, or that is a flooding consistency. We want it to be able to drizzle down on there and disappear, right? Ribbon and disappear. All right, I am gonna get the other 21 of these done, and when I come back, we'll see what they look like and talk about what we're gonna do next, even though we kind of already talked about it. I got all the base icing on, yeah, and I now know that even the base icing takes practice. They are not the prettiest things in the world, but that's okay, because if I've learned anything in life, it's, you know, if you screw something up, it's not how well you can repair it and make it perfect. It's not to do it perfect the first time. It's if you mess up, how do you fix it? And I know how I'm gonna fix it. I'm gonna take some of that icing that I set aside in the jar right here, and I'm gonna make some blue, and I'm gonna make another color, and I'm gonna drizzle it all over it, which will take away from like these, you know, splotchy spots here. That's a little trade secret, you know. Hide it. That's all you gotta do. What is it Bob Ross says? You never make mistakes, you just have happy accidents. That's all this is. But after I get done with that, what we're gonna do is we're gonna let these sit out at room temperature until this icing hardens. And that can take anywhere from an hour to 3 to 4 hours. Even as much as 6, depending on how hot or cold your room is at your kitchen or wherever it is you're putting them at to dry. If need be, if you think it's going to be much longer than that, just put a fan in front of it and let it blow lightly. I read that too. And that'll help dry them up quickly. So when I come back, they will be dried. They will be completely iced with the drizzle colors and all that stuff. And we'll try one. All right, I'll see you here in just one moment. All right, guys, so we'll let our finished icing the cookies, and we'll let them sit for, oh gosh, it's probably been at least 6 hours. Yeah, well, 5 to 6 hours at any rate. But here we are, right here is our finished product. As a matter of fact, I'll bring you down so you can get kind of a closer view onto them real quick. Put you down there towards the floor. But there we are in all their fame and glory. Yeah, they didn't turn out too shabby, really. I was going to use a piping bag to ice them with, but then I thought, no, I'm going to try using the flooded method like I did with the white and see if I can't, how good I can be at drawing straight lines. Well, you can see how that turned out, really. Although that's okay. Yeah, it's all part of learning, right? And all the same. But I mean, as you can see, the icing on them is, you know, firm. But it's not rock hard, and that's what you're trying to avoid is rock hard, which is why the other 22 of them are in a container. Well, I don't think there's 22 left because I think Abby got some and Chris got a couple, and that's okay. Yeah, but I'm gonna try one. They got Chris's approval and Abby's approval, but we haven't tried one yet, so let's try one. Yeah. Those is alright. The cookie is soft in the center, a little crunchy on the edge, but not burnt crunchy or hard crunchy. And the icing is really good. I'm digging it. The first round of these we made, I didn't ice them because I wanted to see what the cookies tasted like. And like I said, they've held up for a week without the icing. And I know these will hold up for probably about 5 to 6 days with the icing on them. And I know that just from Christmas cookies. You know, because the icing, as long as you have to keep them in a container. If you don't, they will dry completely out and hurt your teeth trying to eat them. And it'll be the icing, if nothing else. I mean, the cookie will dry out too, but the icing becomes rock hard if you don't keep them in a container. So definitely keep these in a airtight container. And if you could, you should probably, other than when you're serving them, keep them in the fridge. It is egg, after all, and you kind of want to make sure they're chilled till serving. Yeah, and then let them go to room temperature. Remember, bacteria, anything that can grow bacteria at a rapid rate, and I know that I'm actually certified to talk about this. You get about a 2 to 3 hour window before you start to grow bacteria that could hurt you. So, which is why, like with cakes and stuff that have got a cream cheese topping and things like that, you set them out an hour or so before the party, they're fine. Custard pies, things like that, anything that involves egg, you want to do that. Now, you got a little longer with these because of all the additives in them, but all the same, because the vanilla in and of itself, with it having alcohol in it, kills a lot of things in it. If you didn't know, pure vanilla is nothing more than alcohol with a vanilla bean that's been sitting around for months on end. So you can leave these out for the afternoon and evening, but to store them, refrigerate them. All right, that's the best way to go. So anyhow, next week, no clue what we're doing, not yet. I am getting ready. I mean, literally getting ready to right now bake some cupcakes that I want to try. I think they'll be fun, and it's something, I don't have a recipe for it, but the devil's food cake we made a couple weeks back, I'm going to take that and turn it into cupcakes. So I'm going to pull out some of the center, put in a cherry filling, and do a whipped cream cheese icing on top of them. I think that'll be fun. So, and if it turns out well, maybe we'll do those next week or the week after. I don't know, but we'll see. But yeah, I have no idea what we're going to do for dinner yet. No idea what we're going to do for dessert next week. But until next week, I love you. I love you very much. I mean that from the bottom of my heart. Tell somebody else you love them and you love them very much. It's going to make them feel a whole lot better. It's going to make you feel a whole lot better to tell them. Make some of these cookies and share them with a friend. They'll know you love them. Guaranteed. So until next week, I'll see you then. I love you. Talk to you later. Bye.